Hi and welcome back to La Bolla. This episode is all about how busy Pete and I are on the trees on the 4 acres of land here. And just to give you a taster, Pete reckons he spent about 60 hours on each of the 45 Cellina di Nardo olive trees that we've got out of the 120. So that's just a flavour of how much time they take, which warrants an episode. We have about 16,000 square metres of land at La Bolla. That's 4 acres, and it has 175 or so trees on it in total. So it's no wonder it takes up most of our time when we're here. Here's an aerial picture for you of the land, and we're going to take you through what we have already. So, established trees that were here when we bought the property 18 years ago. We have 43 large Cellina di Nardo olive trees highlighted here. These are the ones that have Xylella. They're all showing signs of Xylella, and most of them also have olive knot, and we're trying desperately to do what we can to save these. In addition to the Cellina di Nardo olive trees, we have 70 or so small olive trees, and these are split between the north orchard and the south orchard mainly. After the olive trees, we have a mixture of fruit trees. We have 11 almond trees, and that was originally 28 when we bought it 18 years ago, so that's reduced quite a lot. Then we have 3 persimmon trees, 3 fig trees, and 1 red pear tree. We also have an established citrus grove made up mainly of oranges, mandarins and lemon trees. About 18 months ago, we got a digger in especially to make holes that go through the bedrock so we could plant a wider variety of fruit and nut trees. So we have, of the new ones, 14 of them didn't survive last summer. I forgot to mention that. So what we have now are a mixture of pomegranates, pistachios, figs, plums, peaches, apricot and lime. And last but not least, I really wanted to plant a range of ornamental trees, so non-fruiting, non-producing trees that are drought tolerant as well, so that we could get a lovely view from the veranda mainly to the land here, and they all provide a variety of either leaf interest, bark interest or flower interest at different times of the year. So I'm standing in front of one of our 3 persimmon trees. This is an established tree, and this one is a variety on its own. The other 2 are a different variety, and it produces the most amazing fruit. Gorgeous with yogurt in the morning or as a jam or on a cheesecake. So we bear production in mind when we're thinking about how we're going to fill the 14 other tree spots that we've got. As you've probably gathered by now, we spend the majority of our time on the olive trees, which is one reason why we're not thinking about filling our 14 spare spots with more olive trees. The production from these trees is it was about 130 litres last year, 135 litres, and we're quite happy with that. That's just the small orchard. The year before we got 135 litres from just the large Cellina di Nardo trees, and this year for the first time ever, we believe, these young trees are producing for their 2nd year in a row. So what we're doing is obviously working, because they've got a lot of blooms on them at the moment, and we'll probably get another big harvest, probably our bumper harvest yet from the olives. So we're not thinking about olive trees, but if the big trees die, then we might replace with young olives as we go forward. One of the things we have to bear in mind here is that the level of the soil between the bedrock and the top of the soil is really, really low, and at this end of the land is particularly low. Particularly low. Do you want me to start again? So we needed to get a digger in 18 months ago to dig through the bedrock in about 40 spaces that we've then planted young fruit trees in. We're at the eastern end of the land where the level of the soil is the lowest between that and the bedrock, and one of the October peaches survived at this end, but it's the only one that did. The next three up from it didn't survive last summer, as did the other 12 or so young fruit trees just didn't get through that brutal summer. So we have 3 spaces to fill up here, and the idea with these 3 is that we're going to plant hazelnuts, but we only plant, this is the same for plants as well as trees, only plant in the autumn. So we're in May at the moment. They look a bit sad because you've only got the circles, but come the autumn we will be planting 3 hazelnuts in here, and at least we know that the hole will go down because this is where the digger went through the rock. This is only their second spring. So last year we expected nothing from any of the young fruit trees, but look at that pomegranate! And there's 12, we can count, they're much smaller the other ones, but we can count 12 on that one. And we planted in pairs, so you'd expect for this one, which is exactly the same variety, to have the same number of pomegranates. Not one baby pomegranate yet, only time will tell. And then here we've got a rather sad looking peach. It's only sad because I removed all the leaves, they had peach leaf curl, so we're waiting for new leaves to come out. And on this spot here, which is an empty one, the idea is that we put another peach or a nectarine to go alongside this one. The walnut tree that originally was alive when it was bought 18 years ago died a few years ago, and it looks really sad, so we're growing climbers up that one. But in a bit of a nod to the old walnut tree, we're going to put a replacement walnut tree right here, so within eye line of the old one. And when we went to go and see our friends Ivano and Tracy, Ivano was very excited because his mulberry tree was producing like mad. So I've decided that we're probably going to put a mulberry tree here because they were actually really tasty. So with these 3 empty spaces, we thought we'll put another peach, because that peach is doing okay actually. We'll put another peach here to join it, probably a different variety, but hopefully that'll work. And then we've got these 3 spaces here where I'd really like to put figs, but a different type of fig. There's a lovely big red fig that our friend Franco brings round for us in the summer, and it's so delicious. So I'd like to find out what that is and put those there, because at least we know it does well in Puglia. So this is an apricot that's in its second spring. It got a really hard hit last summer and its pear didn't survive at all. So this is probably smaller than it would normally be in what is its 3rd year. No fruit this year, I don't think, hopefully next year. But we are going to plant next to it a replacement apricot. And then these 3 spots are for red cherries. And that way Pete is going to be able to set up an irrigation system using an IBC for the hottest months next year, because these won't go in the ground until the autumn. So I'm just showing you how well our pistachio trees are doing. It's their second spring as well, and we're really pleased with how they filled out. They're growing up, they seem to be very happy, they are drought tolerant, so we stand a good chance of getting some nuts maybe later this year. But at the moment, there is not a nut to be seen.
I can't remember where it was now. Oh, I know. I spend my time cutting trees. There are two things in the last 2 years. The tree cuttings really for the olives are split into 2 parts. The big Cellina di Nardos, and we've also got the small grows. The big ones, when we first got here, didn't have Xylella in them, so they were too high. So I spent about 6 months taking the height down from about 15 to about 8 metres. Then Xylella came through, and now for these particular trees, all it is cut to survive. So I'm trying to look after them and cut them and cut them and cut them to try and make them survive where everything else is around us is dead. So they're not looking pretty, it's not functional, however, we're gonna try and keep them alive. And our trees at the moment, they're not looking too bad. Everything else is dead around us, and ours are fruiting, so they can actually produce olives this year for the Cellina di Nardos. So now we're in the small olive grove, and looking after these trees is slightly different to the larger trees. These trees just hadn't been pruned for about 15 to 20 years, but they were still okay. So we've been pruning these trees for olive production, but also to cut out some of the diseases that we found in there. And the diseases, this is a small Corotina tree, this one here, the little one. So this little tree here is a Corotina, and within the Corotina you can see these little leaves here, this one here, peacock spot, which is a fungal type disease. It's not hugely infective, but we've got some in there. So we've got peacock spot in the tree. We've also got Xylella, we've got olive knot, and we've got lichen, and we've got a bit of fungus. So all in all, they just need a bit of TLC. So this is a small one here, and if I take you over to this larger one, which is a Picciolina tree, and it's absolutely, these last year were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. They produced the French cocktail olives, but lovely oil. And this one's a larger one, and again, we've cut the trees to actually make it better fruiting and looking after it. And the stuff that we've cut off of these trees, if it's healthy, what we've done is we've made piles of the healthy stuff, piles of the stuff that's infected with either peacock, spot, olive knot or Xylella. We've separated these two out, so we're burning the infected stuff, and the stuff that's not infected, we've actually used our shredding machine and we've shredded it. And if you look over here, once we've actually shredded it into piles, we're trying to put it onto the younger fruit trees. So here is some of our shreddings that we've done from non-infected cuttings, and we've put this around this particular fruit tree, and we're working our way around the fruit trees. Problem is, big pile this high shreds down to a little pile this big, and you need 3 wheelbarrows per fruit tree. So we are getting there. Probably in the next 5 years we'll probably have it all done. There's a lot of shredding, and you get quite disheartened when you put it all on and you go, well, where's it all gone? But the good thing about this is that when this is on, it keeps the weeds down. When it rains during the summertime, it'll keep the moisture down in, so it won't evaporate so much. Then in the winter time, it actually keeps the soil warmer than the rest of it. So, weed suppression, moisture retention, keeping the warmth in when it's cold, and actually keeping the hot out when it's really hot as well. So for all these reasons, we found that one tree that we did when it was baking hot actually survived when everyone else died, because it had this stuff around it.
So here's Pete just positioning himself. He's working through the small olive grove, which has got approximately 68 trees between the south and the north groves that we've got. This one is filled mainly with Picciolina, Corotina and Vicino, and it's a race against time now, because you're not really supposed to prune the trees for harvesting if it's over 20 degrees, so between 15 and 20 degrees is ideal. Over 20 it starts to get a bit risky. It's already the 10th of May and we're pushing our luck really, but we're just going to get this finished and have it done because there's quite a lot of dead stuff in it. So up he goes with his little chainsaw and his loppers, and down here is my job. So my job will be to clear up. This is Rocky. Rocky's the saddest of all of our 45 Cellina di Nardo trees. And Pete's called it Rocky because it seems to just keep on fighting, even though I'm pretty sure it's given up the ghost. And the growth at the bottom is not a good sign, actually. That's when the tree is in trouble. So Rocky might be the first one that we experiment grafting with next year. It has to be done in the spring, in the growing season. We've watched a friend of ours do it. You're not really supposed to let the trees get this bad before you try it, but if we're going to lose Rocky anyway, let's give it a go. I would normally wear gloves and have all the gear, but this is just to show you that there's a technique with getting these olive suckers off the tree, and that is to push down in the opposite direction so the whole thing comes off, and that way you don't actually cut them, you don't curtail them. You see, you've got ants in there. But it stops them regrowing from here, and that's what we didn't do. So you actually hold it down, and I put my thumb against it, and it just pulls it out really cleanly. If you cut them, they just come out from the bottom, which is where you get all the bushy growth that we don't want. Let's see if this big one will do it. No. This is one of our 12 almond trees. I used to have 28, but we've lost the rest over the years. They are prone to Xylella as well as olive trees, anything with a stone in, apparently. We pruned them in March, no, hang on, when was it? Yeah, in the autumn, and they are heaving with small almonds now, young budding almonds, nuts. And on nuts, they you've got this softer out furry covering, which you have to peel off, and then you've got the hard nut inside, and we use a rock, a hammer, and we just sit there and therapeutically smash them to bits and get the almonds out, and then we roast them dribbled with olive oil, and it's delicious as a little nibbler. So I'm now in the north small grove, and you can see through the trees there where Pete is pruning in the south grove. So this is the other half of our 70-ish small olive trees, alongside a very sad looking row of Cellina di Nardos, although we have got buds. And I'm taking you down so you can see our one and only sort of pear tree. We haven't actually had any pears yet because they've come at the wrong time when we've never been here. And I'm really hoping, because everything's a bit earlier this year, the almonds are earlier, these pears might just fall at a time when we're here in July. But look at the number of pears on that! We've never seen this many. It got a very heavy prune from us last year, maybe for the first time in its life, I don't know. And it's responded so positively. It's an old tree. It's been here for at least the 18 years that I've owned the land. Got a bit of a disease starting on that. That doesn't look too good. Dots, lots of black dots. But otherwise, it's actually looking really healthy. We're very pleased and we're quite excited because we might actually get to taste some this year. That'd be good. Pear crumble. Pete's asked for pear crumble. This is a young yellow plum fruit tree that went in the ground only 6 months ago. It replaced one of the 4 cherries spots that 5 cherries that died and didn't survive last summer. And it's got a plum. It's got a very young plum appeared, which is, how exciting is that? The other time-consuming aspect of looking after the trees and this number of trees is that we're trying to do things as organically as possible. So there's organic treatments like neem spray that I use, garlic water, which is the boiling up of the cloves and then using the water when it's cooled down to spray against insects. Also, we do tap traps for collecting the olive flies once a year. That horrible job's coming up, and there will be an episode about that one because it's disgusting and it's worth watching. And then also we fertilise the trees with organic matter as well. So we use nettle fertiliser, as in homemade nettles, pick the nettles, make the fertiliser. We also use the bokashi juice that comes from the compost, and again there's going to be an episode about composting, the next one. So trying to do things as organically as possible takes more time, but that's what we'd like to do on the land. Thank you for making it to the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. And if you would like to make a comment, then we do answer those typically within a day. And also we'd love it if you subscribe to us with our journey on at La Bolla, as we've got so much to do, including where I'm standing, which will at some point be a sunset hillock overlooking the sunset. And do join us for the next one, which is all about composting.